IdeateApps software is just thrilled to have one of our premier partners be Microsol Resources in the Northeast here. So today, the presentation is all about improving productivity and efficiency for all of your Revit users with our latest software solution called IdeateApps. So you see on the screen here, IdeateApps software actually develops 4 add-on applications to Revit. And so today we're going to be focused on the IdeateApps solutions. Let me advance the slide here. So IdeateApps software is headquartered in San Francisco, but we have a team in the UK, in Washington State, Oregon, New Jersey, and myself, I'm located in the Northeast, in just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I know many of you are in the Northeast today, so we're getting quite a storm up in Boston. I think you had it in New York yesterday, so the nor'easter and the rain is pounding on the window, so hopefully that doesn't come through the microphone. But IdeateApps software, as I mentioned, is headquartered in San Francisco, but we have customers all around the world. We have over 40 countries, and we are growing, and we have a big push into, of course, Europe and to Asia. So anywhere where there's Revit usage in the world, we have a need for IdeateApps software. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about productivity solutions from IdeateApps software called IdeateApps. And IdeateApps consists of 4 tools. Ideate Quick Select to allow you to search, find, and select data very easily and quickly within your Revit project. Ideate Smart Delete, which allows you to understand the implications of a deletion. And so I'm going to go into details about that. Basically, it's a real liability issue in the sense if you don't know what you're actually deleting with the Revit project. And then you're able to find and repair visibility issues with Ideate X-ray, so understanding why something may not display in a particular view in Revit. And then finally, I'm going to talk about Ideate Renumber, which allows you to pretty much renumber almost anything in Revit. It may be lighting fixtures, it may be doors, it may be rooms, as an example. And of course, we're going to have question and answers at the end as well. So, IdeateApps consists of 4 high-quality productivity tools. So it's a collection of applications. Those applications, as I mentioned, are Ideate Quick Select, Ideate Smart Delete, Ideate X-ray, and Ideate Renumber. So the first solution or application I'm going to talk about today is called Ideate Quick Select. Ideate Quick Select is for all Revit users, as I mentioned, for use anytime within the project, and it's allowing you to select information in the Revit model. So you think about the Revit project browser, which shows you potentially what could be in your model. For instance, you may have families loaded, but those loaded families aren't necessarily in your project. Well, Ideate Quick Select is a model browser. It's showing you every single instance of elements in your Revit project, whether those items are visible or not visible. So we're going to see some examples of where maybe some CAD imports aren't visible, so how would you be able to select them without something like an IdeateApps Quick Select tool? So I'm going to switch over here to Revit. I'm actually using Revit 2017.1 today, which is the latest release from Autodesk. I actually saw in their help menu that there's a 2017.2 that's going to be coming out very soon. All of our Ideate software, or IdeateApps, I should say applications, run on Revit 2015, Revit 2016, or Revit 2017. And of course, as Autodesk makes updates, and we all assume there will be a new update to Revit probably in the spring sometime, we'll be ready very quickly with our Ideate software solutions. So in Revit 2017, what we've done is we've added Ideate software tab to Revit. And here you can see our existing Ideate BIMlink, Explorer, and Sticky, and then in orange here we have the IdeateApps solutions. If you are using Revit 2015 or Revit 2016, they'll be in the Add-ins tab. But since we are continuing to develop more solutions, we thought it would be best to, from 2017 and moving forward, to have our own Ideate software tab. So as I said, the first tool I'm going to show you is Ideate Quick Select. So when I select on Ideate Quick Select, the dialog appears, and as I said, I'm looking at the entire project, and it's showing me all elements in the project. So in this case, I have a quick count. I have 36,830 in this test project. And you can see it's showing me that I have, for instance, 173 CAD imports. I have, for instance, 1,324 dimensions, and so forth. I can quickly search for items. So maybe I wanted to search for items that contain the word glazing. So I'll select on the little binoculars there, and you can see that it comes up with curtain panels or text notes. And in fact, text notes actually contain the word glazing, right? Or it may be the family name. So in this case, if I look at, operable panels, I've got clear glazing. And if I want to go to a particular instance, I simply double click, and that will open up that view. So there you can see the view and has the window. If I want to select or highlight the window, I simply select on the check mark, and you can see now in purple there I've got that window highlighted. Now in this case I just selected on the one instance. There are 44 of these clear glazing operable panels. So if I select on the top level node, I've now selected all 44. And you see that the 44 selected is in the dialog. It also matches the Revit filter selection. So of course those will always be matching. So now that I've selected all 44 clear glazing operable panels, maybe I now want to go over to the Properties palette and change that to a sliding panel. So Ideate Quick Select is what we call non-modal, meaning that you can work with any Revit command. Once you select an item, you can go over to the Properties palette, you can go over and select temporary hide isolate, or any command that you'd manipulate that data. So there you can see now I've changed all 44, and in fact there were already 4 sliding panels, so now the total count for the sliding panels is 48. I can clear the selection, and then now maybe I want to clear the selection. I don't want glazing. I want to search for concrete as an example. So again, when I search for concrete, it's going to look at all items that have the word concrete in them. And I can actually go to views too. So if I go over here to views, we organize those views on a sheet or not on a sheet, so it's even more sophisticated than the project browser. I can come over here and say, oh, well, there's that sill detail. I'm going to double click, and that will open up the view. Right? And then not only can I open up the view that contains that sill detail, I can right-click and I can say open the sheet where that view is contained. So if it already is on a sheet, in this case it's organized by sheet, we have the ability to both navigate to the view or to navigate to the sheet. Now I'm going to go and clear that concrete selection. So now I'm going to see all of the items here. Now not only can we see views, but if I come down here to all of my items in my project, I can come over here to the schedules. If I look at schedules, I've got 8 schedules. I've got schedules and quantities. We've organized them by door schedules, lighting fixture schedules, room schedules. If you come over to the project browser, you'll notice that the schedules are basically just listed alphabetically, and so there's no way to sort of organize them. So Quick Select gives you a nice organization based on the categories. So if I want to go right to the door schedule, again, I can double click to open that door schedule up directly. Now, I mentioned that you can search for both items that are visible and non-visible. So if we go back up here to our categories, I can look at my CAD imports, and I can expand whether, and this will show both CAD imports or CAD links, either one, and will show you whether it's linked to the view or linked to the project. So in this case, I've got 2 instances of some door details here. So if I double click on the first one, it brings up the drafting view, which is perfect, but why do I have 2 instances? This seems like a mistake to me. So I can double click, and sure enough, it tells me that the second instance is hidden in a particular view. So Quick Select is asking me, do I want to open up that view and turn on the mode in Revit called Reveal Hidden Elements? And I say, yes, I do. And I see that now this has been temporarily hidden. I can now click on that and hit the delete key to remove that. now turn off the Reveal Hidden Elements mode, and notice now I only have the one instance here for my CAD imports for my door details. So I know that this is now a clean view, because what happens is sometimes people will import a link into a particular view, they'll right-click, hide in view, and then you forget about it. So again, this is showing all pieces of information, all elements within the Revit project. You can also switch between the active view or a current selection. So if I want to show just elements in the active view, I've got 2,468. Or if I wanted to actually select items just using the box select and then say current selection, I've now selected 239. So there are many ways to be able to select and identify the elements and be able to search very easily. And I'm going to use Quick Select in conjunction with our other applications going forward too. So you'll see here I'll be able to use it with Smart Delete, and I'll be able to use it with the X-ray tool as well. So let me clear the dialog there. So again, IdeateApps Quick Select is for all users, and it allows you to easily select, find information within your Revit project. Our next tool that we're going to be discussing that's part of the IdeateApps collection is called Ideate Smart Delete. And Ideate Smart Delete is going to give you information about what other things might be deleted. So we all know that Revit is a building information model that has intelligent connections, right? So a wall contains a door, and that door contains tags, maybe dimensions. So when you delete that wall, basically Revit just says, okay, you're deleting all that other stuff. But maybe you didn't realize all of the things that are also going to get deleted. So Smart Delete is showing you all those connections. So I'm going to switch back over here to Revit, right? And I'm going to show you, I think a good example of that is I've got this detail, right? Here's a detail, but it's actually showing the model element, which is the floor. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, okay, they click on this floor, they don't actually realize that it's a model element because it's showing here in a detail view, and they go ahead and they're just going to go over here to Revit and hit the delete. And the floor goes away. And you might think like, oh, I'm only deleting that in this view. But in fact, you've actually deleted it everywhere in the model. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to click on the floor again and go up to my Ideate software tools for Smart Delete. So now click on Smart Delete, and the dialog comes up and it says, okay, you've selected one element, the floor, but in fact you're also going to delete 59 dimensions, 5 edit cut profile regions, and 2 keynote tags. And you may say to yourself, well, why a keynote tag in this case? Why a projection screen? That doesn't make sense. So I'm going to double click to open up that view, and then a double click again to zoom into that area. And so what happens is when you're selecting and you're creating these keynotes, they have to attach to something. So a lot of times people will attach it to the easiest thing available, which might be a floor slab, it might be a wall, because you just want that projection screen keynote tag to show in the view. And you don't realize that by deleting the floor, you can accidentally delete these keynote tags. Or accidentally, for instance, delete these dimensions. It kind of makes sense that if you're deleting the floor, you're going to delete the dimensions that may appear in different views. So notice that as I'm scrolling through and double-clicking, I can open up different views that would impact that. So I can decide to delete or not delete this information. Now I'm going to close the dialog for a moment. I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to open up a different view here. So this is going to be my furniture plan here. What I can also do is box select an item. So for instance, maybe I want to kind of zoom up into this conference room over here in the top. So I'm going to select, just by using the Revit drag command, right, and select a number of different items. Then I have a couple options here. I've been coming up here to show you that it's on the menu, the Ideate software menu. I can select Smart Delete, but I also have shortcut keys. And you see there I've actually built the shortcut key to be DD, in honor of New England. I always joke that it's Dunkin' Donuts, but it's if I select DD on the keyboard, now this dialog will come up and it will show me all of the things that I selected. In this case, I've selected 162 items, and in bold text are those items that have dependencies. So you can see very quickly the casework, the curtain wall grids, the doors, the furniture, the groups, the rooms, the walls have other elements that will also be deleted. So for instance, if I come down here to, let's say, the rooms, right, and I expand on the rooms, right, there are 9 room tags that will also be deleted. In addition, if I delete this room in this space, this conference room that I've selected, and again, I can go to any of those views to review that. But what I can do is, in this case, on the left-hand side, I can uncheck casework, curtain wall grids, mullions, doors, furniture, groups, rooms, walls as an example, right? And now I can refresh the tree. So in this case, oh, I forgot one, furniture. So I'm going to uncheck furniture and refresh. So now I've selected 39 elements. And over to the right, it's telling me, hey, there are no dependents. So you can delete those 39 elements knowing that you're just selecting the 39 elements and you're not accidentally deleting something else that you didn't intend to. Or maybe, like I said, you do want to, but you can use the left-hand side to filter items for deletion. Now, I mentioned that you can use Ideate Quick Select in conjunction with the Smart Delete or other tools. So what I like about this is that I'm going to come over here to Quick Select, and by the way, also another way, I used QQ as the shortcut key. You can right-click and you can add to your Quick Access toolbar, which you see right above the canvas in Revit. I have, again, all of my Ideate software tools as part of my Quick Access toolbar as well. All right. So I'm going to start the Ideate Quick Select here just by selecting on that item. And so maybe as an example, I want to look at groups. So come down here to groups, right? And I've got different detailed groups and model groups that are associated. I'm going to expand on model groups, and I've got this table here. So I'm going to go, and again, if I want to find out where that is, I can zoom right to that. I can select on the table. So now when I select it, it's put, you see here it says one selected. It's been put into the Quick Select selection set, but also the Revit selection set. Now I can come over here to Smart Delete. So Quick Select becomes the input. So because I sort of pre-selected it with Quick Select, that's what it said. Oh, you want to start Smart Delete, right? And I'm going to pick that model group of the banquet table. So now, not only is it showing me information that's going to get deleted, but I like this because it's showing me that it contains a table, it contains 10 stacking chairs, but it also contains the model arrays and a radial array. So I think a lot of times people use Smart Delete not necessarily for just deleting items, right, but for understanding what is part of a particular group or maybe a nested family as an example. So it's going to show you all those dependencies, which is really quite nice. Another way that we can use it with Quick Select is I'm going to come over here to my views. And as I mentioned, when we select views, let's do not the active view, we're going to do the entire project. And we're going to look at all views. And so there are 414. We organize those whether they've been placed on a sheet. So you see I've got 124 that have not been placed, but I've got 290 that are already, those views or viewports exist on a Revit sheet. As I expand this, you can see that I've got, again, different types of views. So there are 6 floor plan views that have not been placed on a sheet. And I can expand that and see those 6 views. So you may say to yourself, well, I can go ahead and delete those because I'm not using those items. They haven't been placed on a sheet. All of my sheets have been filled out, so I can get rid of them. So I'm going to select on all those 6 floor plan views. I'm going to now come over here and select Smart Delete. So it tells me that there are the 6 views. And so each one of these has, for instance, there might be, detail groups, in this case, that are specific to the view, right? So if you delete the view, you're also going to be deleting any 2D annotations or view-specific elements. You know, tags, as an example, or maybe other viewports. And so you may say, oh, okay, that's okay, but I think it's really important to note here is that in this particular case, there is a dependent view. And so if you're familiar with Revit, the idea is that you have a master view or a parent view, and then you might have dependents that would be, let's say, you're breaking that large view into the left-hand or the right-hand section to be able to place on a sheet. So, in fact, maybe these two dependent views have been placed on a sheet, but the actual parent view has not. So, therefore, you do not want to delete the parent view because, obviously, those dependent views would be deleted as well. So I guess my point is it's not just as simple as saying, oh, those views aren't on a sheet, let's just delete them. It's nice to understand that you've got dependent views and exactly how those are being used. So Smart Delete can help you, and then you can decide to delete or not delete those based on all of the information that you have at your fingertips. So again, really nice way to be able to use Quick Select to be able to select items, and then Smart Delete to review the dependencies. So again, it's really we feel it's a liability issue because Revit just doesn't tell you what's going to be deleted, whereas now with our IdeateApps Smart Delete, you have full information about the dependencies and what potentially could be deleted. So our next tool in our collection of productivity tools here is called Ideate X-Ray. And it's been very well received, and I think actually it's one of my the funnest sort of applications to work with. And Ideate X-Ray basically allows you to understand why something is not visible in a particular view. And this is a very common problem in Revit. Because sometimes things just go missing or people don't understand. You know, it could be, for instance, a phase or a view discipline or a crop region or an annotation crop region or a work set that's not loaded. In fact, we've come up with over 50 different ways that an element can be hidden in a Revit view. And instead of running, you know, an individual person running to their BIM manager and asking why it's not visible, then this tool gives the Revit designer or Revit user information on how to fix the issue and maybe why something's not displaying. So I'm going to switch back over here to Revit. And in this particular case, we've been using, I'll go ahead and fit this view, we've been using this architectural model, and I'm going to come back to that for some of the renumbering, but I like to be able to mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to open up a project here, and this one's going to be my MEP project. So I'm going to show some X-ray examples with MEP that'll be a little bit different than the architecture. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to start with a very simple one. But let's go over here and say that I want to place a sprinkler. So I've been told as a designer that I need to start putting sprinklers in this multi-purpose space. That's my task. So now I'm going to go over to my Systems tab. I'm going to select on Sprinkler, and I'm going to place the sprinkler. How many of you have ever seen this warning before? Okay, I just think I placed something, but I'm not quite sure. It's not visible in this particular view. Okay, so like I said, this is a pretty simple example, but let's start out simple. So how do we work with X-Ray? Well, we're going to go to, again, our Ideate Software tab. We're going to select on X-Ray. And the first thing it does is it says, okay, what are you searching for? Here's the drop-down list. Well, it's empty because I haven't told X-Ray what to search for yet. So what I'm going to do is select by crossing. And I'm going to say, well, you know, somewhere in this space, I think, is a sprinkler. And in fact, it finds the last thing I selected, which was the sprinkler, but there's also other sprinklers here too as well. What X-Ray does is it looks in the view, it takes the view range, it does 20% above and 20% below to give you a list of items that are visible and invisible within the view. So then I can select from them. Then the target view most of the time this is going to be the active view, but you could actually choose different views if you'd like that are open. So I'm going to go ahead and say find the element. And X-ray will go through a check of over 50 different items to tell me why that particular sprinkler is hidden. So in this case, it actually comes up with a couple. The sprinkler that I chose actually had a view range issue. It was outside the element view range, but it's also the sprinkler category has been turned off. So if I wanted to understand what that means, and let's just say I'm a new Revit user, what I can do is I can say, well, okay, help me understand that. So it shows a picture of the visibility graphics overrides. I can come through and I'm like, oh, this is, you use this little selection to turn on or off different categories. Well, maybe, okay, I understand the help. Well, show that to me. And it actually then will bring up the dialog for the visibility graphics. I can scroll down and I can sure enough see that if I come down here to sprinklers, the sprinkler category is turned off. So I can check that on, right? Or what I can do is actually have X-ray fix the issue for me. So if I say fix, it says, okay, now I say done, and it actually turned on the sprinkler category. So now if I zoom up, you see that the sprinklers are turned on. So again, that's a pretty simple example, with category, right? But there are many more complex issues. So let's start looking at some of those. So in this view, I'm supposed to be working with a heat pump, but for some reason it's not displaying where I think it should. Why isn't the heat pump displaying here? So again, I'm going to fire up X-ray, right? I'm going to say, oh, right now there's nothing selected. I'm going to select by crossing, and I say, well, you know what? Somewhere in here there should be a heat pump. So in fact, when I look at my list, sure enough, there's a heat pump. And I want to find why that element was hidden. So X-ray tells me, hey, it was hidden because the phase created of the element was future, and the target, or the phase that's being displayed in the view is different. So they need to match. So when I select help, there's a couple ways I can fix this, right? I can actually change the view phase so it displays, or I could change the property on that heat pump, which is the phase. So maybe the heat pump had the wrong phase, maybe the view has the wrong phase. So in this case, there's no easy fix. That's why the fix has been grayed out, because I now need to go to the view, right? And I need to scroll down here to one of the properties, and I want to have the phase to show as future, because this heat pump has a future phase, and so maybe that was incorrect. Maybe I should change the phase on the heat pump, or, like I said, on the view itself. So, many times X-ray is giving you the information, but then you've got to make the decision of how you want to fix that. So another good example of that is, like, in this case, let's say, why isn't section 3 displaying? You think that there should be a section marker here, but it's not displaying in this view. Well, just as I use Ideate Quick Select to sort of pre-populate for Smart Delete, I can do the same thing for X-ray. And I actually really enjoy using this a lot, because sometimes it's just easier to find things with Quick Select. So I'm going to bring up Quick Select, our standard dialog that shows all the information here. I'm going to say, you know what, it's section 3, and I'm going to use a little binocular to find that. When I do, it shows me, again, view references, viewports. Well, a section marker is a view reference. And so then I can look at the section, the building section, and sure enough, there is section 3. And so I'm sort of pre-selecting section 3, then I'm going over here to X-ray. I'm going to start X-ray. And the 2 times that I used X-ray before, remember I showed you this drop-down and there was nothing selected because I just started the tool from scratch. And then I used this select by crossing to go ahead and find it. But if you've pre-selected it, meaning in Quick Select, or maybe you've selected it in another view as an example, it will already be pre-populated for you. So that right now it's looking at that building section, and now I can say find the element. Tell me why it's not being displayed. So in this case, it's saying, hey, the view is set to a the view discipline of the section element itself, right? So that's meaning the section I'm trying to display is set to mechanical, but the actual view is set to structural. So there's a mismatch there. That's why they're not displaying. So again, I have the sort of ability to look at two different things, meaning do I fix the section or do I fix the view? So I'm going to say done here. And so I want to first maybe change the discipline of the view. So I come down here to the discipline itself, right? And if I look at the discipline, it should be set, let's see, I always forget, oh, there it is. It's grayed out because it is being set by a view template. So what I can do is select on and enable temporary view properties. Then I can go and say, all right, now that I've enabled those temporary view properties, let's go over and set my discipline. Remember, the Ideate X-ray was telling me it should have been set to mechanical. I can apply, and sure enough, that section marker appears. Now, at the same time, the section marker itself has a property, a discipline. In this case, it's mechanical. And remember, our view template was saying that we wanted the structural discipline. So now, by using these temporary view properties, I can set this to structural, apply, it goes away, but when I reset my temporary view properties, it will appear because now I've selected the property of the view reference. In this case, when I select on the view reference, it is now set to structural. Okay? So again, you have the option of selecting sort of the information about the element or maybe the information or the properties of the view itself. So there's a lot of examples here of being able to understand why things aren't displaying by using Ideate X-ray. So Ideate X-ray, a big part of X-ray is our information, our help that we give you to understand why something's not visible in a particular view. So we're giving you both graphics of why, for instance, a view depth or something's not showing up in the primary view range, or again, why something may not be set correctly based on the discipline, or the work set is not loaded, which then will automatically bring up or could potentially bring up the work set dialog, allowing you to make those changes. All right. So our next collection or application is called Ideate Renumber. And again, Ideate Renumber allows you to basically renumber almost anything within your Revit project. So I'm going to come back over here to my Revit view. I'm going to go to my lighting. And if I zoom up to this area, you'll notice that I have this multi-purpose space. And right now, there are some lighting fixtures. And the lighting fixtures, actually they don't match. The space is 220. The lighting fixture is the space, an ABC increment, and then a circuit name. So for instance, if I wanted to change this to, let's say, the space number is 501, right? And now I wanted to renumber the light fixtures based on that new space. How would I go do that? Well, again, I can come up to my Ideate Software tab, select on Renumber, and it will give me the rules that are available for renumbering. And it is context sensitive. So right now in this view, it's only giving me grids, lighting, space names, and space numbers. But in fact, in this project, if I say manage the rules, I have rules for all these, renumbering all these other items as well. For instance, sprinklers or structural columns, but there are no sprinklers displayed in this view. That category is turned off, so therefore the rule is not displayed. So it's really nice that it's giving me context-sensitive information. So in this case, I want to say I want to do lighting. And so right now there's an increment, starting with A, and then it's going to give me the space number, and it gives me kind of a preview, 501A, and then the circuit number. So the easiest way to do this is just by selecting the elements. Say start numbering. So I'm going to select on the first element. You see it's 501. And if I select on the second one, then this one becomes A, this one becomes B, this one becomes C, D, E, and so forth. And I can just pick whatever order I want, and then when I'm done, I hit the escape key. Now, an easier way might be to select a path. So when I select the path, and I say start numbering, what it's looking for is a detail line. So now I can select on the line itself. In this case, I've already kind of pre-drawn this detail line, but I'm going to show you that you can actually draw it on the fly as well. So I select the detail line. Now it has all of the lighting fixtures, right? And in fact, I can pick on one that doesn't have a circuit number, and I can say ignore that element. Or I can reverse the order. There are 12 items that or actually in this case, since I ignored one, there are 11 of 12 values I'm changing. So I'm going to start with 501K and go all the way down to 501A. And I'm going to accept those changes and see that now I can see that this is 501K, 501J, 501I, and so forth. Now, these rules are completely customizable. So if I go back up to the renumbering tool and pop that open and select under Manage my rules, I'm going to look at lighting and I'm going to edit this. And so here is where we give you kind of the behind the scenes. How was this rule created? It was using the space number. It had a number field, which was the ABC, and then it had the circuit number. So maybe I want to remove the circuit number, so I'm going to remove that, and I want to add a new value. So I'm going to add a new field, and here's where we give you the ability to look at all of the parameters that make sense. So you have instance parameters, type parameters, host parameters, and this will also, of course, show any shared or project parameters that you may have that you may want to tag as well. So in this case, I'm going to select the family, and I'm going to give it a little kind of key, FM, for the family. So now I'm showing the space, a number increment, and the family name. And I say, and it's actually giving me a little preview down here, and I say, okay, okay. Now I'm going to select path by crossing again, start numbering, pick the detail line, and here now I'm renumbering these 501A, and then the family was called generic pendant. And again, if I so desire, you know, this one didn't have the circuit number, I guess that's fine, so I'm going to go ahead and accept those changes. So now those have been renamed or renumbered with the 501A generic pendant. I'm going to close this project because now we're done with our MEP file for the moment. Oh, actually, you know, but before I close this project, one last thing that this project does have that also is nice is I can renumber the viewports very easily. So when I open up this sheet, notice that these viewports, it has 1A, 2A, 3A, and so forth. Well, maybe I want to renumber that. So I'm going to select on the renumbering tool again, and I'm going to select the rule is detail on a sheet. And again, it's context sensitive. It will only show you those rules that make sense for this particular view. I'm going to select the path by crossing and start numbering. Now select the detail line, and here you see it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. For some reason I want to reverse that. I can accept the changes, and now you see it's numbered the sheets, or I should say the view titles, 04, 03, and come down here, 02, and so forth. Now let's close this project. I won't save that. We're going to go back to my architectural file. So now I want to go back to, let's say, my renumbering, and I'd like to do room and door. So in this case, I don't have any detail lines drawn. So I might want to draw the order on the fly. So I'm going to start up the renumbering tool from IdeateApps. Oops. Oh, well, the schedule view is open. Okay. Oops. Let's go ahead and close those windows. And let's go ahead and start renumber there. So in this particular view, now I want to select that I want to renumber rooms. And so I might want to have the level prefix to be, let's say, 5. So I'm going to start, maybe these were all on the 100 level or 1 level. I want to actually have it be 5. So I say start numbering, but before I do that, I want to create a path. So here's that little check that allows me to draw a 2D detail line. I'm going to select the start numbering, and the first thing it asks me to do is go ahead and select, on this case, not select elements, select path. I have to do the right one. Then it asks me to select the detail line. By default, it gives me the Ideate path or the Ideate path vertex. I'm going to select on Ideate path. So there's the detail line I'm using. So now as I zoom up here, I'm going to start in this vestibule. So I'm going to do a click here. I'm going to go over to the themed classroom, and then I'm going to keep drawing. I'm going to go over to this other themed classroom, 105. I'm going to go up to the multi-purpose space, and then finally end over here on this concession nature store. Okay? So what I've done, again, I've created a couple points there, but you can see that this line starts in the vestibule 100. It crosses through corridor 101 and into the themed classroom 102. And that's important to remember because I selected the crossing. So what it does, it says, okay, well, this vestibule was 100. It's now going to be 5,000. The corridor, which was 101, is now going to be 5,001. And this themed classroom 102 is now going to be 5,002. Now, I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to show you what it means to say select path by vertex and start numbering. Pick the same path, and I get a only 5 values that I'm changing because it's only looking at the points where I selected that line. So in this case, it's going to renumber the vestibule at 100, the themed classroom 102, and then, of course, over here to the themed classroom 105 is the next one. So again, it's important to note that you may want to use just the vertex of the line, or you may want to use the line as it crosses through other elements. So in this case, I'm going to go back to the crossing. I'm going to say number, and I'm going to start there with the 5,000 and actually renumber all of these. And again, at any point, if, as an example, maybe the themed classroom 103, right? If I wanted to skip that, I could ignore that element and accept the changes. So now you'll notice that if I zoom up, here's vestibule 5,000, 5,001, 5,002. It skipped the themed classroom because now it left it as 103, and then the next corridor is 5,003. Now, because we've renumbered these rooms, we may want to renumber the doors based on the room information. So I'm going to select on the renumbering tool and bring that up again, and this time switch my rule to be doors. Now, I've shown you that you can select individual elements. You can select a path by crossing or vertex, but for certain rules, you can also renumber the entire view because, like in the case of the doors, it doesn't really matter which door I'm picking first or second because I'm telling it, hey, look at the room information and renumber the room or renumber the door based on its value of the room. Therefore, a direction doesn't necessarily mean much. So that auto number by view, if I select that one and say start numbering, now it's going to look at all of the doors in the project. You'll notice that there's a couple here that are white. What that means is those values didn't change. If I reverse it, basically, actually, it's still those values didn't change. They're the same in that case. They were 121. It's going to now be 121 again. Again, I guess because obviously I didn't change that room. And so you can select on, for instance, the original value, 304A or 300. In this case, it's 5,000, right? And I can decide that I want to switch the from room and to room information. Right? So in this case, maybe I want to switch the from room. Or in this case, this is actually this switching it here when I do this little flip room relationship. It's actually changing it in the database. But I can also just report on the from room value instead. So instead of B, it's going to be 118B as an example. So here are all of my, my new rooms are all over the 5,000 numbers, right? And now I've got the doors renumbered those correctly. And maybe in this particular case, like for instance, I want to take these items here, I want to select on all of those and ignore those elements as an example. So I can have a combination of elements that are ignored and again, flip the from and to room values or report the from room values. Then I can accept those changes, right? If there are duplicate marked values, that's okay. In fact, we're going to make an enhancement to Renumber to allow you to sort of fix those on the fly. But right now, I'm going to select OK. And now you see that, okay, here's 5,000, here's 5,000A, the room was 5,000, here's corridor 5,001, and this room now was 5,002, here's the door called 5,002. So you can very easily renumber these items based on other information within your project. So Ideate Renumber just allows you to, again, renumber almost anything, and it's used primarily after schematic design where you need to be able to potentially renumber light fixtures or structural elements or rooms or doors. And then, like I was able to show you, you can automatically renumber the rooms by a path. You can renumber doors per the room data itself. You can renumber views by sheet. So you saw that I was able to, in the MEP file, being able to renumber those view titles based on a path. And then, of course, you have access to all of the either built-in parameters or, as I mentioned, the shared or project parameters. And of course, you can customize those rules. And in fact, let me switch back over here to Revit just for a moment, because I think this is important. If I bring up the Ideate Renumber tool, there's a configuration here allowing you to manage the options. So you can have where are those rules going to be located, and even what your default line path style is going to be. So you can have a shared directory location where your rules are going to be located, and then you can load from those rules, or you can save rules to those locations. But right now, when you save the project, all of the rules within the project will be saved. So all of our Ideate software solutions, the IdeateApps that I showed you today, as well as Ideate Explorer, Ideate BIMlink, and Ideate Sticky are available as a standalone or a network license. We use the FlexLM technology, the same networking license that Autodesk uses, so it's very easy to get up and running if you already have a network licensed server. And of course, we support Revit deployment. Hopefully you saw that we have very extensive in-product help as well as our online help for all of our Ideate software solutions. And as I mentioned with IdeateApps, we support Revit 2015, 2016, and Revit 2017.